My eyeballs glued to this Kindle this morning because I can't stop with this book. I'm like, bestie, can you please just love Khan? Like, he's so sweet and perfect and I love him so much. I'm going to try to read all of these books in 7 days or less. It has absolutely been, besties, like 2 weeks. I love everything. That's my review. Hello besties, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori. If you're new, I hope that you're having the most amazing day of your entire stinking life. We're doing a chunky book challenge this week. I'm challenging myself to read 1,800 pages, actually pretty close to 1,900 pages, in 7 days or less. Let's talk about the TBR. My shortest book that I have started with is our Who Did This To book club pick for May. We actually changed it from To Bleed a Kingdom to Lady of Darkness by Melissa Rorick. This book is 538 pages. I'm already about 15% of the way into that one, and I will give some reading updates after we talk about the TBR. The second chunkiest that I have been dying to get to, but I've been very intimidated by how long she is. This edition also makes her look extra chunky. I have When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is my second chance for this author. We'll see how that goes. This one is 690-ish pages. And then the last one is Touch of Poison by Claire Sager. This is the second book in the Shadows of Tenebris Court series. And this one is 710 pages, our longest one in this vlog. Altogether, this is 1,882 pages. I need to be reading at least 269 pages every single day. 2 of these I'm reading on my trusty Kindle. I'm reading Touch of Poison and Lady of Darkness on here. I do have the audiobook for Lady of Darkness as well. My only physical read will be When the Moon Hatched. Let's start with just a little rundown of Lady of Darkness, because that is, like I said, what I've started with. I'm 15% of the way in. Absolutely loving it so far. We have our main character. Her name is Scarlet. There's a lot happening in this world. Apparently there's fae. They have been blocked off, like magically blocked off onto their own continent. We start off in the world of the mortals. Scarlet never knew her father. Her mother was this famous healer that kind of aligned herself with this League of Assassins, Court of Assassins, Kingdom of Assassins. It's kind of been referred to as all 3 of those things. Her mother, unfortunately, was murdered very graphically right in front of our female main character. She was taken in and indoctrinated, trained as an assassin. She's one of these ladies of the darkness, and she's a vibe. She is really trying to figure out who murdered her mother. That seems to be her ultimate driving purpose. She has some mysteries about her. She has this mysterious illness where at 9 o'clock every night she has to take this tonic to be able to sleep, otherwise she gets like violently ill. Intriguing. We also just recently found out that she can read the fae language. The man that she's been training with, Riker, saw her book and was like, girly pop, what are you doing? You can read that? And she's like, yeah, it's literally the common tongue. And he's like, baby girl, no, it's not. There are amazing training scenes right off the bat in this book. It's like actually so stunning. My eyeballs glued to this Kindle this morning because I can't stop with this book. So I have to work today, unfortunately. I'm gonna switch to the audiobook, which I found on Everend. Hi besties, I promise I will not do all of my updates from my computer chair. I wanted to do a check-in because I'm now 52% of the way through Lady of Darkness. I am aiming to finish it today because that's going to get me to my page goal for the day of like 270-ish pages. I have a lot of thoughts. This book was not what I was expecting it to be, especially from the first chapter, or maybe it was the prologue, where we have these 3 baddie, assassin-y wraith girls who are just like murdering people. They get contracts to murder people. There's the Black Syndicate that they work for, which is this like black market assassin-y group. Craziness. Loved it so much. It was giving what Nevernight didn't give for me, and I'm still very obsessed with it. The parts that I wasn't expecting, all of the magical creatures, the vampires, the fae, there's shifters that we haven't seen yet. I have no idea. I went into this book also not really reading the synopsis. I was going off of vibes alone because Erin from Booked and Busy loves this book. Rachel from Raven Haired Reader, I think liked it pretty well. I think Rachel reread it and liked it a little bit more on her reread. I know Mel from Eleanor Reads loved it. So I was like, okay, all of my girlies love this book. I need to read it. And I really didn't look at the synopsis. I think that there is, at the halfway point, there's a lot going on. There's also a lot of almost random info dumping. Like, we get a really good layout of the world and we get a good info dump of all of the beings that are in this world. But I'm almost like, why did we need to know about shifters at this point in the book if we haven't been exposed to any of them at all? Like, I would be okay with a little bit more of a slow reveal of certain details as we needed to know that information. It seems like this first book, it was, here is everything you need to know about this whole world. Do with it what you will. I'm sure that we're going to be building upon it in this 5-book series, maybe 6-book, because there's like a 4.5 book novella in there somewhere. I do like Scarlet, but the main reason I'm enjoying this book so much is because of the men. They are coddling Scarlet a little bit, like everyone is kind of obsessed with her, and there's this character, Nuri, who's like, another man to coddle you, like, oh my gosh, and she's like, he's not coddling me, everything's fine. I'm like, Nuri has a point, bestie. I'm trying to remember if I gave a synopsis for this book. Let me stop just like spouting off random facts and thoughts and feelings about this book and actually give you a coherent synopsis. Scarlet Monroe is owned by this assassin lord. Scarlet has 2 sisters who she's trained with her whole entire life to be these assassin baddie queens like I was talking about. A tragic night has Scarlet finding herself locked away in a noble's household, trapped and forgotten until she's ready to fall in line, until the day she's presented with a job. If she completes the assignment, her payment will be something she's coveted for a very long time against the Fae Fire Prince who brutally killed her mother. But is she willing to sacrifice her ideals for retribution? When children begin disappearing from her home, all of her plans are put on hold as she races to save the most innocent. With the help of old friends, a jilted lover, and a mysterious newcomer who claims the magic of the Fae is possible in mortal lands, Scarlet delves into the darkest corners of the world. It's definitely giving Throne of Glass. Like, if you really enjoyed Selena from Throne of Glass, I think that you will really enjoy Scarlet as a main character. So similar, and especially with how all of the men in this world are just like building her up and supporting her through all of these different things. I think that you will really enjoy Scarlet. But I probably have about 4 hours left of reading for this book, and then I'm not going to decide what I want to read next. We're going to decide together when that time comes. Finished Lady of Darkness, and we're going to start When the Moon Hatched today. I was just by the pool. You're gonna be hearing this a lot from me. Reading by any body of water, whether it's a pool, an ocean, a lake, one of my favorite activities to do. And it's so hot here already, even though it's only May, that in the mornings going to the pool and reading instead of like reading on my couch or like reading in bed has been one of my favorite funtivities. So I apologize if that's gonna get a little bit repetitive. When it starts to get crazy hot here, like too hot to be outside, that's when I'll start doing like the vibey coffee shops or going to the library, because the library that we have down the street from us is incredible. Like one of the nicest libraries I've ever been in. But back to the point. I finished reading Lady of Darkness maybe 20 minutes ago. I came back because I have to prep our pizza dough for Friday pizza night, and then I'm gonna go back to the pool. I have mixed feelings about it. I ended up giving it a 3.5, and I wanted to write my Goodreads review and my review in Fable before I talked about it on here just to sort through how I was feeling and my thoughts. There were things that I really liked about this book. Like, it was very entertaining to read all the way through from beginning to end. I was entertained, I was invested, I never felt myself really fading. There were some parts in the middle of the story, but it really wasn't lack of interest. It was more the plot holes started to really bother me, mostly surrounding character motives. I don't understand why Mikhail was like such a psychopath through that whole book, and I'm keeping it very vague because no spoilers. I don't understand why the assassin lord decided to just abandon Scarlet, basically. Like, that literally makes zero sense to me. Character motives really bothered me because I think it took me out of the story. It made it less believable. The only other thing that sort of bothered me was that Scarlet is supposed to be like one of the best assassins of all time. She's been raised from a very, very young age to be this like crazy assassin girly, and yet people were just bamboozling her the whole time, and I'm like, shouldn't you be able to like fight your way out of this? Or like, you're supposed to be this like crazy schemer, and like not just her, but like her other Lady of Darkness sisters. They're supposed to be the most badass of all time, and I'll be honest, they were not giving badass. They were giving victim, and a lot of victim. We got one badass assassin-y sister scene, and that was it in the whole thing. I do want to continue with the series. I might give it like one more book to really determine if I'm in it or if I'm out of it. I'm very excited to start When the Moon Hatched, and I did also get the audiobook for it on Everend. So I will update once we start reading that bad boy. Hi babes, I am only 82 pages into When the Moon Hatched. My goal is to get a little bit more reading done of this today. It's been a couple days since my last check-in. This weekend we went to a wedding and I had literally no time to read. So this is the focus for today. I have a lot of bullet journaling to do to set up for June, to set up for romantasy-a-thon. I get to do my romantasy-a-thon spread in my bullet journal today. That's gonna be a whole separate video, which you'll probably see before this one, actually. So my goal is to listen to a lot of this audiobook while doing the bullet journals and the doodles and the reading tracking. I will say, first impressions so far, this book is a little bit more dense than what I was expecting. The world building is a kind of a lot, only because there's a lot of different types of dragons, and the world that we're in has a different time system, and it also has its own, not language going on, but like it definitely has a lot of intricacies that the first 80 pages have been kind of a lot. I think I would be doing a little better with it if I had sat down, read the first 100 to 150 pages. For me, processing a lot of that information and making a lot of those connections all at once can be quite important in a fantasy book that has a little more in-depth world building, whereas I have been reading this on audiobook very casually over the last like 5 or 6 days. My very brief quick check-in first thoughts. I'll check in a little bit later. We are now on page 290 of When the Moon Hatched, and I feel like I have a million thoughts and feelings. I don't even know where to start. I guess we'll start with a lot of the positives. So I love the dragons in this book. I can't wait to continue getting more from them because they seem like they are sentient beings in some of the they're not even chapters, they're like diary entries that we're getting from the past, I believe, where dragons seem much more sentient and connected with the characters. In present day, when we're following Rave and I think his name is Can, who am I? They seem to be a little bit more of like a means of transportation. However, Khan has a relationship with this dragon, like a big, scary, crazy dragon. We're getting a lot more into the romance, which I'm really excited about. When the romance began, it's like it began right away. We began around like the 230 or 240 page mark, getting really into like the romance bits. These two still don't even know each other, literally at all. We don't really know much about Khan. We're also still learning a lot about Rave. They barely know each other. And there was like this crazy, intense, like pretty slightly spicy scene. Like things start happening and then they stop, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I had to go back and reread because I was listening to the audiobook, and I was like, how did this start? How did we get here? Like a second ago, they were knifing each other's throats. It has the trope where she knows that she should kill him, but she doesn't want to. And that is just one of my favorite things in the whole world. Like the tension building is immaculate, but it went from 0 to 100 in 2.5 seconds. That was confusing, but it's clear that there's some underlying attraction. I'm hoping that in the next section that I get to read today, we learn a lot more about these two, because there are still a lot of things that feel unexplained or unrevealed to us as the reader. My goal for reading today, I want to finish this before June. It's currently May 29th. My goal for today is to read at least another 100 to 150 pages. The thing that's on me is that this book deserves to be fully read physically. I feel like my enjoyment factor, even though I'm enjoying it, like enjoyment factor out of 10 is probably like a 7 right now. Like I'm definitely enjoying it. I feel like my enjoyment factor would be like a 10 if I was just physically reading this. This would be a fantastic book to go back through and absolutely annotate the living heckin' bob out of it. Just to provide some context before you get this building montage, these bookcases are temporary. They started off as our old nightstands, and then we had them as the like end tables next to our couch in our old place, and I've been wanting to upgrade to like a legitimate bookshelf in here, so that is what I'm going to be building. I think it's pretty cute. We'll probably style it in this vlog as well, because why not? Because I'm gonna move these books onto my updated shelves, and I think I'll have a little bit more room on these shelves than what these like 4 little squares provide. We always love more room for books. Why not do a check-in at our new little reading nook that I'm absolutely obsessed with. Also, this is my Medusa. She's a little scary looking, and I do apologize, but like I love her at the same time. I last night made it to page 426, so we are officially over the halfway mark in this beauty, and the section that I read yesterday is making this a very strong 4-star, if not maybe like a 4.5. I feel like I never have any idea what's gonna happen next in this book, and I'm loving it. Like, the unpredictability is crazy. I'm kind of obsessed with it because I was wondering, what are Khan's motives? Like, this seems so random that he like saved her, took her to this different place, and I don't know, like, I don't understand. And then with what just happened in that section, I'm like, oh, I fully understand what's going on, and it's absolutely incredible. I feel like I didn't give a synopsis for this book yet, so I do apologize. I'm gonna do that right now. Rave is an assassin for the rebellion group called Fur Duath. I think that's how you say it. And her job is to complete orders and never get caught. When a rival bounty hunter turns her world upside down, blood spills, hearts break, and Rave finds herself imprisoned by the Guild of Nobles, which is a powerful fae group that turn her into a political statement. Crushed by the loss of his great love, Khan Vagar took the head of a king and donned his melted crown. Now on a tireless quest to quell the never-ebbing ache in his chest, a clue lures him into the capital's high-security prison, where he stumbles upon the imprisoned Rave. Echoes of the past race between them, and there's more to their story than meets the eye, but some truths are too poisonous to swallow. I absolutely never read that summary because I had no idea what was going on in this book the entire time, and that makes so much sense. The things that you learn when you just read a summary of a book, that is absolutely incredible. We love it. I want to try to finish this today, and that way we can start A Touch of Poison tomorrow. I can get a good chunk of A Touch of Poison done before this weekend when Romantasy-a-thon starts. So that is the goal for today. I will follow up once I read more, but before I let you go, I don't know if any of y'all are in your Chapel Roan era like I am. I'm obsessed with her. And while I was setting up my whole little bookshelf area over here, I decided to go on Redbubble. I'm obsessed with her. Oh my gosh, I'm so in love with her. So I'm gonna get this framed. Tell me she doesn't look like a freaking goddess in this. Like, I'm so upset that I didn't get tickets for her tour that she's currently on. I'm gonna go to Michael's and try to get a frame for this. It's actually kind of a weird size poster, so I might have to get a custom frame, but either way, it's gonna go right up here. Hi besties, I'm sorry this is very close up. I don't have a lot of options in my car right now because the lighting is just really weird. So I camped out at this little coffee shop. Coffee delicious, breakfast delicious. I started editing this vlog and I was reading more of When the Moon Hatched because unfortunately yesterday I didn't finish it, but I'm very close. I only have like maybe an hour and a half left in the audiobook. I'm on page 584 and it ends on page 689. So I actually have only a little bit more than 100 pages left. This is kind of a 5-star read. Like, the more and more that I'm reading of it, especially as we get more of this romance, Khan is the most vulnerable male main character I've ever read, and he's so unapologetic for his love for Rave that I'm obsessed, even though like she's not reciprocating in this whole book because she's terrified of loving anyone. She has this fear that the people that she loves all die, and it is like a valid fear, but also it's not. And I'm like, bestie, can you please just love Khan? Like, he's so sweet and perfect and I love him so much. The quotes in this are absolutely incredible. I'm gonna continue posting more quotes that I've annotated from this book on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it's always linked down below, because they're just so freaking good. I'm so obsessed. So we're gonna finish this. I'm going to head to a different spot because I felt bad that I was just like camping out in this coffee shop for going on like 2 hours. So I'm gonna go to a library that's pretty close by. The only other thing I wanted to mention, at the beginning of this vlog, I said my chunky book challenge, I'm going to try to read all of these books in 7 days or less. It has absolutely been, besties, like 2 weeks. We are on week 2 of this vlog, but I wasn't just gonna quit this challenge, first of all, and second of all, these are books that I really wanted to read, and I feel like I've been getting intimidated by reading chunky books because I try to squeeze them into a very short time period, and that's really fun to do sometimes, but other times you just need more time with a book, and that's totally fine. So this is your sign, if you're scared of chunky books, to take your time with them, read them however works best for you so that you're enjoying your experience, because truly I felt like, even though Lady of Darkness, I had my issues with it, I really did enjoy that read of that book. And When the Moon Hatched has been an experience, but I have been loving it, like absolutely loving it. The more that I read of it, I'm just falling more and more in love. And so fingers crossed that A Touch of Poison is another absolute win. That one, when we get to it today, I might actually try to read that one a little bit faster than I have been, because I'm really excited for my June TBR, and obviously I'm going to carry A Touch of Poison into June. I'm going to try to finish it like this weekend, which will be the first couple days of June, but I'm so excited for my June TBR that I'm like, okay, I do need to read A Touch of Poison with a quickness. We're not going to talk about how it's the longest book in this vlog. It's gonna be totally fine. Hello besties. I have an update for A Touch of Poison, and I also wanted to give final thoughts and rating for When the Moon Hatched, because I did finish that last night. I don't think this is a surprise, especially how I was talking about it towards the end, but I actually ended up giving When the Moon Hatched 5 stars, because it's very funny. When I first started that book, I was kind of teetering. I wasn't like super into it. As I continued reading, it just got better and better and better and sucked me in more and more, and that romance and that slow burn and the emotions and the vulnerability, I loved it so much. I can't wait for the second book to come out fall of next year. I still haven't put together like a coherent review for it on Goodreads, because do you ever just finish a book that's so good, you finish it, you give it 5 stars, and you're like, I have nothing to say because this book was just so good and it's just 5 stars and that should speak for itself? That's how I feel. Like, I don't think I could put a coherent review together for it. It's just incredible. Like, the writing was so good, the characters are so good. I love everything. I love everything. That's my review. And then I am now 32% of the way into A Touch of Poison, and I am obsessed. I tried reading my 230 pages of this last night because I'm trying to finish it this weekend. It's currently Saturday and I am on page 217. I'm having such a good time. I was having a good time by page 25, and if you're unfamiliar with the series, this is the Shadows of Tenebris Court series. This is the second book, so I will try to keep things slightly vague, but there's one thing that I really need to talk about. But just to give a little bit of context for the series, the first book, we follow our main character, Kat. She has some really difficult circumstances. She is struggling to maintain her manor that she lives in. Basically, she has this husband that's absolute garbage trash, who treated her like trash and then basically abandoned her and gambled away all of their money. So she is struggling to maintain her household. They have big debts because of her garbage husband, and she has 2 people that work for her that are basically like family. She ends up getting called to court. This kind of takes place, it's not super Regency era, but it's like Regency adjacent, because she gets called to court. The queen wants her to be one of her like ladies. She gets roped into competing into this competition. She can win this lump sum of money. She will get out of debt, save her manor, save her people that are working for her, basically her family. Court ends up being so much drama, so much tea. She is one of the only humans in this deadly competition. There's fae that are competing. There's fae in the castle. She has to learn all of the like high polite society rules. Love interest is crazy amazing. He's a shadow daddy. He also has this ability to create this like shadow version of himself. So there's two of him. Wink, wink, hint, hint. It's amazing. Anyways, that is book 1. It ends on a massive cliffhanger. This is book 2. All I'm going to say, and this is like slightly spoilery, but you have no context to what's going on. In the second book, she is poisonous and he is her antidote. We have made it to our page goal of chapter 66, page 465, I think. And my Kindle tells me that I have 3.5 hours left of this book, which should be doable to finish today, and I'm very excited. So updates from the last section that I read. I feel like this book is so well paced. I was a little bit worried with how long this one was. It's slightly longer than the first one, that there was gonna be added fluff and there were just gonna be lulls in the writing. I don't feel like that at all. It hasn't felt like I've read 465 pages. I have just been vibing. I have just been along for the ride. I think that Claire Sager's writing, as I mentioned before, is so easy, fun. I think that she paces her stories really well. I think she was very thoughtful in all of the plot events that she wanted to happen in this book, so that it never feels like we're in a really lull period with no action. The relationship development between a lot of the different characters, because in this book, Kat is in a completely different area with a lot of new people and characters, so she's getting used to Elfheim, whereas she's only ever known the human world. That has all been done really well. She is dealing with her new circumstances of like being poisonous. They've gone on adventures. They've battled some like crazy monsters that are called horrors that are literally so creepy. They're like giant praying mantises, but with like turtle shells on them. It's disturbing. Overall, I'm having such a fun time. I cannot wait for the third book in the series, which I think comes out in July. I think it got pushed back. Yeah, it was supposed to come out June 27th, but I think that she pushed it back to July, A Promise of Lies. I'm so excited for that book. It's going to be incredible. It's also making me very excited to jump into Beneath Black Sails, which is our June Who Did This to You book club pick, because I just love Claire Sager's writing. Also, I want to check out the reading order that's suggested on Claire Sager's website, because Cassidy and Mel mentioned that on our sprints yesterday in the chat. Kat's sister, who is the piratey character in Beneath Black Sails, is mentioned quite a few times in this, and there's also a character whose name is Perry, I think, that comes from that other series. So I definitely don't feel like I have no idea what's going on. It's just kind of mentioned, so I don't think it's like required for you to read the Beneath Black Sails series before starting this one and book 2 and stuff like that. But I love that the characters are a little bit intertwined and mentioned, and so I'm very excited to see how it gets interwoven in that piratey series. This is very angsty, and it's very, very slow burn. Even from the first book was also slow burn. Not to say that there's not spicy things that don't happen. There's spicy scenes that help to build up the angst, like you just want them to be together, but like nothing truly has happened yet, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm kind of here for it. Like, I'm just loving their relationship so much. I'm loving their bonding experiences.
Guess who just finished Touch of Poison? We've finally come to the end of this vlog. So just finished A Touch of Poison like a couple minutes ago. Final thoughts and final rating. I'm gonna give it a 4-star. I really thoroughly enjoyed this book, as I've mentioned throughout. The only thing I'll say about that last section, I think that the last 20 chapters were a little bit drawn out. They were all pretty short chapters, maybe like 5 to 3 minutes, at least like my reading speed, and obviously that's going off of my Kindle, which is relative to the reader. But they were really short and it seemed like we needed to get to the ending. I do like how it ended. I just didn't love how the final like battle scenes were playing out. I wish that it was a little bit more streamlined to create more suspense, because at the final chapter where you get the big plot twist, I was like, why didn't we get this a little bit sooner? That was the only time in this almost 700-page book that I felt that way though. I loved this last section that I read because the romance was so slow burn that once you start to get into when they actually get to be together and like the spicy, oh my gosh, the spice was so good. And I was reading the author's note cackling at the fact that Claire Sager was like, I'm really sorry about like certain things in the story, and she was like, I'm really sorry that so many of you have called me the queen of edging, and I was like, I'm so dead at that. That is so funny. So 4 stars. I feel like this vlog was definitely a challenge for me. I think trying to read 3 super chunky books in the span of a week was a little bit unrealistic, but I'm happy that we extended it. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the books that we read in this vlog. This is the first vlog that you will see during Romantasy-a-thon, so happy Romantasy-a-thon, friends! I'm trying to think if there's something relatively poisonous that I can have you leave as an emoji. Leave the skull and crossbones emoji if you've made it this far and you would like to let me know that you were here. I will catch you in the comments. I will see you in my next video on Thursday. Toodles!